Sorry. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to Pleasure Principles, the podcast where we dive deep into the topics that shape our relationships, personal growth, and the pursuit of joy. I'm your host Avik, and today's conversation is one we all need at some point in our lives. How to recognize when you are in the wrong relationships before it's too late. And we have all been there questioning, second guessing, and wondering like whether the red flags we see are just the bumps in the road or warning signs that we should listen to. So joining me today is Jonathan Aslay. So welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Lovely, lovely. Nice to meet you. And so, Jonathan, like before we start our conversation, I'd quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Jonathan is one of America's leading midlife dating coaches with over 200,000 YouTube subscribers. His incredible journey of helping singles find love took a deeper turn after the tragic loss of his 19-year-old son in 2018, which led Jonathan to explore the role of emotional health and self love in dating. So he's the author of What the Heck is Self Love Anyway? A guide that is packed with spiritual and personal growth practices. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show. I'm really, really grateful you are here today to share your wisdom, and I can't wait to discuss this topic. Welcome to
Oh,
the show.
I'm happy to be here. I'm excited and I dive in. Let's get into it.
Lovely, lovely. So, Jonathan, this is a big question on everyone's mind. Like, what are the early signs someone might be in the wrong relationship? So, and also like, why do so many of us miss them? So, what do you say?
So I want to start with the concept of wrong relationship. And I have a belief that every relationship has a lesson to teach us. And we're, to the
Hmm.
extent that we think of the wrong relationship as the one that won't go the distance, I want to start with the idea that every relationship has something to teach us.
Hmm.
But to answer your question,
Yeah.
I suspect, and I say this, I say it as suspect, is that
Uh-huh.
when we become truly attuned to who we are and what we really want,
Hmm.
then our energetic vibration gives us clues when you're in something that feels right and when something doesn't feel right. In other
Yeah.
words, if you are sensing something doesn't feel right, and again, I don't like the terms right or wrong, but something feels off.
Ah.
Well, that might be a clue that this might be a relationship that is misaligned.
Hmm.
Because really, if we're thinking about it, a relationship, I believe, is about alignment. Are we aligned with each other? Do we share the same values? Do we have the same vision?
Hmm.
Can we blend lives together if we're looking for that kind of partnership-based relationship? But most
Hmm.
importantly, are we aligned in our emotional maturity?
Hmm.
And what happens is you begin to feel misaligned with someone. That's a clue that
Hmm.
something needs to shift, something needs to grow, something needs to change. And so our energetics actually
Hmm.
speak to us all the time. And that's the clue that something might be off.
Hmm. Exactly. Very true. Yeah. And on this, like, is it more common for people to miss the signs because they are blinded by um, hope, or maybe because they are normalized dysfunction over time?
This is a great question. And I believe we become blinded for a number of reasons. For one, is chemistry and attraction is a very powerful force to bond two people together, and
Mhm.
physical intimacy can bond two people together. In fact, it's necessary that we bond on a physical level for a romantic relationship versus a well, certainly a family member, you wouldn't be being physically intimate, but a family, a friend, a coworker, those relationships, one of the unique differences of a romantic relationship is the physical, act of sex. That's what I mean, to some degree, differentiates those other relationships. So first, we bond through physical intimacy.
Mm.
And that oftentimes causes us for a period of time not to notice, we'll call them red flags, but the differences or the misalignment you might have with another person. But I also want to say that one of the biggest problems is most human beings haven't developed healthy emotional maturity or good relationship skills. So to maintain this relationship beyond the physical requires understanding, the mechanics of a healthy, happy relationship, which is usually good conflict resolution skills, the capacity to resolve our differences in a non-confrontational way. And most humans aren't really good at it. I mean, it takes a lot of inner work. It takes a lot of practice to learn healthy communication skills. It takes a lot of self awareness to know what your needs are, what your desires are, and then to be able to express that to another human being.
Exactly, I understood. Yeah. And also, like you have said that one of the biggest issues in dating is a lack of self-love. So,
Yeah.
how does the person's um, self-love, I mean, self-worth,
Yeah.
influence the type of relationships they choose?
So I want to be clear with everybody. The word self-love can mean a lot of things different things to different people. So the way I interpret it is it's self-worth, self-confidence,
Mm.
self-reliance, self-discipline, self-esteem. It's all these self-words, and we just wrap it in a nice heart, call it love, is that we all have an inner 6-year-old inside of us that
Mm.
needs love. Okay, we all have an inner 6-year-old inside of us that needs love. Self love is the adult way of taking care of that little child.
Yeah.
Most human beings have a wounded inner child. We might have had significant trauma in childhood, or we could have just had benign, average child and or trauma in childhood that requires some nurturing. Self love is the capacity of the adult to nurture the inner 6-year-old within us. Why is
Mm.
this so radically important? Well, let me just say this. I believe the number one emotional health wound most every human faces is I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not likable. That's the inner 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And and nothing triggers this like dating and relationships. I mean, it triggers
Mm.
this wound like nobody's business.
Correct.
So when you're in relationship, if we're not nurturing the inner 6-year-old inside of us,
Mm.
it's going to oftentimes create problems in actual adult relationships.
Mm. Wow. And on this, like, do you think people with low self-worth are more likely to ignore the red flags because I mean, they believe they don't deserve better?
That's a great question. And I believe when somebody's
Huh.
individual self worth is low, they're
Yeah.
just grateful that they might get even a little bit of attention, and just a
Mm.
little bit of attention is enough to fuel it. But it might be that, as you said, overlook some
Mm.
deeper red flags because they're just happy to get some attention.
Mm. Wow. And so, I mean, I have to say, like, that's such a powerful insight. This idea that self love isn't just about treating yourself kindly, but also about setting the standards for how you allow others to treat you. So,
Oh,
um,
yeah, one of the fundamental self-love
mm,
practices is the capacity to set boundaries. And I
yeah.
love the way Brene Brown says boundaries is what's okay and what's not okay for me. What
Mm,
and let me clear, I meant to say this earlier, please forgive me.
yeah.
Self-love is not a destination you receive, okay, or if you get to. It's a practice. I mean, I don't believe we ever fully love
Mm,
ourselves, maybe 30 seconds before we pass away, maybe, um, unless you're in fear. But it's not a destination we ever get to. It's a
Mm.
practice to loving that little 6-year-old inside of us constantly.
Understood. That's very true. And like a lot of people stay in the wrong relationship because of fear, or fear of being alone, fear of starting again. So what's your advice for navigating that fear and finding the courage to leave?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I think we have been indoctrinated into belief that we have to
Uh,
find the one, that one
yeah,
person we're going to spend the rest of our lives with.
yeah.
But I suspect before we had the internet and when we used to live in tribes, we
Right.
lived in small villages, towns, and tribes, it was
Hmm.
mostly the case.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, the reality is most humans find themselves in casual relationships, not serious
Hmm.
relationships. So I'm observant that what if relationships are just another building block for your evolution, for each other's evolution, I should say. And
Yeah.
instead of, looking at, oh, I'm single, I'll never find someone again, shift and like, in other words, you've gone out with someone, it didn't work out. You were in a relationship with another person, it didn't work out. You were in a relationship with another person, you didn't work out. Well, first, I would invite everyone to become introspective and say, what positive things about myself did I learn from each one of these experiences? How have I healed from each one of these experiences? What was good about each one of these experiences? And what am I most grateful for? Because guess what? We may never get to Disney. If you live in California and you're traveling to Florida to get to Disney World, you might stop off at a lot of other amusement parks along the way. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like instead of judging it as good or bad, just say it was part of your experience. But I'm here to encourage everyone to go, if you want a life partner, then embrace that and then put yourself in environments where you can meet potential people. And right now, the internet is the number one place people are meeting. The number one place by leaps and bounds, 65% of all new relationships are happening through an online connection. So, you know, I'm going to say if God put this in front of us, let's just use it.
Yeah, exactly. Very true. Yeah. And also like I think like fear of being alone is one of the biggest obstacles, especially as people get older. But
Yeah.
also at the same time, I imagine like you have seen clients find freedom and self-discovery once they embrace that alone time. So, do you have a favorite success story that illustrates this?
Well, I want to address the alone component for a second, fear of being alone. I understand how, we human beings are social creatures, so it's
Yeah.
natural to want to connect with people. That's a natural need within ourselves. But
Hmm.
I believe we are in a unique point in time in humanity where a lot of people are by themselves. Okay, we'll say alone or by ourselves. And what if we are in a phase of evolution where this time by ourselves is to work on loving ourselves? What if this time by ourselves is to be introspective, to be self-reflective, to be self-aware, to be objective, to embrace the aloneness and
Hmm.
actually learn to love your own company? when
Hmm.
when a person can actually love their own company, it doesn't matter whether they're mated or not. Of course, we don't want to die alone. And most people are never going to die alone. There'll always be some person around you. I mean, there's even nursing homes you can go to that's paid for
Hmm.
by the government, kind of thing. Um, so I'm here to say that I believe we're in an evolution of learning to embrace being by ourselves.
Hmm.
So, but you asked me about a success story. So, I'm going to be very candid. As of this day
Hmm.
that we are recording this, I have entered into a new relationship in my life. And I think this is important to answer your question
Mhm.
because a year and a half ago, I was in a relationship that ended, not my choice. I was very much in love with this person. And I went through the deep heartbreak of an ending of a relationship. And I've done a tremendous amount of work to grieve and heal from the ending of this relationship.
Yeah.
And I went through the entire, like, and I mean, as you shared in the beginning of this broadcast, I lost a child. So I've done a deep dive into healing or grieving. I've gone to the depths of hell. I've done the depths of Tartarus, if you will, to
Mm,
evolve past this pain. But
mm,
I had this relationship end and I've done a lot of work. Why I'm sharing this with you, up until about 2 months ago, my life was really grooved. I'm feeling like I have not felt this great, with the way my life is. I have it just the way I want it. Okay. I am happy by myself.
yeah.
And now someone just entered it.
Mm,
Why I'm sharing this is when I believe when we groove our lives and we are like, I am happy. Oh, by the way, let me be clear. I want a life
mm,
partner. Okay. And
yeah.
I will not remotely say this person I'm speaking of is going to turn into anything. It's still too new, but I am optimistic. Okay.
Okay.
And I I believe it's because I became very happy with who I am that the
Mm,
universe now says I want to share that with someone else. And
yeah.
so I became a more magnetic attractor. And the irony is she saw me on Instagram because I'm a public figure. She commented on my Instagram page. She had watched a number of my videos, and I reached out to her just on a social level because we happen to live in the same town. That we
Mm,
just agreed to meet as friends, and now it's turned into something.
mm,
So I do believe that when we groove ourselves in happiness, we become magnetic attractors for what we want.
mm, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, in your book, you emphasize the spiritual and the personal growth. So, how can someone use these tools to break free from patterns of choosing the wrong partners?
Well, I'm a big proponent. My book is called What the Heck is Self Love Anyway? A Journey of
Mm,
Personal Development, Self Help, Spiritual Work, and I'm encouraging therapy for every human being. Is when
yeah.
we begin a practice of loving on ourselves, of improving on ourselves, of becoming self reflective or to be introspective, self reflective, self
Mm,
aware, objective, then we begin to not come from a place of dependency because most people either choose relationship out of dependency or they usually codependent people pick counter-dependent people. Anxious people pick avoidant people, traditionally speaking. So
mm,
when we come from a place of our sovereignty,
mm,
remember I started this conversation, our energy tells us what's right or wrong. When
yeah.
you've embraced self-love, when you've embraced your sovereignty, you can feel quickly when something isn't right, and you can feel quickly when something is right.
Mm, wow. And so that's really interesting perspective. And even I have heard people say like, why do I keep attracting the same type of partner? But I love the idea that by working on yourself, you change what you are drawn to and what you attract. So yeah, what do you say on
Well, can I
this?
Well, I want to piggyback on this because it's interesting. So
Huh,
my pattern in my life is I happen to be an anxious person, and I tend to
uh-huh,
pick people that are a little bit more emotionally avoidant. And to
uh-huh,
me, that feels like love because that was my mother. Okay. So
okay.
my mother was emotionally avoidant, and that her behavior felt like love to me. Okay. Put that in the box. Now I shared with you about this new person in my life, and all of a sudden, she's very emotionally expressive. She's affectionate. She's kind, like all the things that I don't
Hmm.
want to say my past relationships were not, but all of a sudden, this is foreign to me. And I'll be
Yeah.
candid with you. I'm like, whoa, I'm not loving this person because it doesn't feel like what it was before.
Hmm.
When you can, so that's what happens is, when you actually experience someone who's not like what you're so used to, that doesn't work out, can feel
Hmm.
foreign for a moment. And the real challenge is leaning in and stepping into the uncomfortable, because you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, and that's a very poor analogy, but I'm just simply saying, when you have a good person in front of you but it doesn't feel like the unhealthy versions, that's usually the healthy person for you. But we're so
Yeah.
unfamiliar with it because we haven't learned how to be most humans haven't learned how to be in secure, healthy relationships.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. And like, for the listeners who are questioning their current relationship but feel unsure, like, what's one thing they can do today to gain clarity on whether to stay or leave?
I think the most important question to ask is, why are we doing this? In other words, are we in a casual relationship, or do we have a serious plan to lean into partnership? I think people should have these conversations as early as you possibly can, because it's a waste of time to spend more than 3 to 6 months with somebody if it doesn't have a serious
Mm.
plan to become serious, a plan to become serious.
Yeah.
And I think most humans are just happy with occasional companionship, occasional connection, occasional sex without any solid commitment. So I'm
Hmm.
here to encourage everyone who's listening to this, is like, if you're on the fence about your relationship, then ask, where's this relationship going, and have a plan, because without it, you're just you're basically a placeholder in somebody's
Hmm.
life. You're either working towards building partnership, or you're just spending time together. You're either growing and building in partnership, or you're just spending time together. And not that there's anything wrong with spending time together, but I'm a big proponent. You know what? The richest relationships are people who are in partnership with one another. Those are the deep, rich relationships. They come
Hmm.
with a lot of headaches too, because you have to learn to adjust and compromise and that sort of thing, because there are no two people alike. But there's a lot more fulfillment when you begin a partnership with someone versus something casual.
Hmm. Understood. Great, that's great. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your incredible wisdom with us today. And definitely, I have to say, like, you have given us so much to think about, from recognizing the red flags to building the self worth and knowing when it's time to move on. So,
Yeah.
for anyone who is listening, uh, who's feeling stuck or kind of questioning their relationship, like, remember that you have the power to choose love that uplifts you, not the one that breaks you down. So, Jonathan, like, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or about your work?
Well, first off, thank you again for having me, and I appreciate this platform to share what I am so passionate about, is helping humans really love themselves and find the relationship of their dreams. So my name is listed here, Jonathon Aslay. Simply cut and paste that, put it in Google. You'll find my YouTube channel where you can watch. I shoot like 4 or 5 videos a week. You can go to my website, jonathanAslay.com. You can go to my Instagram, social media pages on Facebook, and follow me there. And if I can be of service, then reach out to me and we can schedule a discovery call to see if working with a coach is right for you.
Perfect, perfect, lovely. That's really great. So great. So thank you so much, Jonathan. And to everyone who is tuning in, here's your reminder: love starts with you. So when you prioritize your self-worth and well-being, you will attract the kind of relationship that you truly deserve. So until next time, this is your host Avik reminding you to love yourself fiercely and find joy in every aspect or every step of your journey. So thank you so much for being on Pleasure Principles. Till then, be happy, stay healthy, stay mindful. Thank you so much.